Welcome, everyone. My name is Mary Jane Williams. I'm with Family to Family Network. I'm glad you're joining me this evening. We're going to be talking about planning for the future. We're going to talk about estate planning and special needs trusts and why they're important. And we're doing this in partnership with NetLaw and EMG Financial. They have offered Family to Family an opportunity that we're going to be able to offer to you. And so I just want to mention them in this presentation. Okay, just a little disclaimer. This is just general information and educational purpose only. If you need any more information about financial, legal, tax, investment advice, please call someone else because that's not me. So I just want you to know that. Really, it's, I want you to understand that 1 in 6 children have a developmental disability. Legal planning is often unaffordable or neglected. Many families unknowingly jeopardize Medicaid and SSI benefits because they don't do any, futures planning. I have stolen some slides from the ARC of Texas because they had some good information on their Master Pool Trust site. But these are all the things you really need to consider when you're planning for the future. Where they're going to live, life insurance, 401k, savings, letters of intent, trusts, able accounts, whether you're going to have for decision making or powers of attorney or guardianship. I mean, there's a lot of things involved in planning for the future. Protected Tomorrows is another place that I often go to their webinars. They've got some great information, but there's lots of people that are going to be involved. And it's really important for you guys when you're thinking about planning for the future that you get all this stuff documented, because the people who take over after you need to understand who all these people are. So what's the difference between a will and a trust? Of course, a will is effective as soon as you die. A trust is not. It's as soon as you create it and assign it, it's created. It doesn't have to be funded necessarily, but that's the way it works. A will usually requires probate in certain situations, and a trust is going to usually avoid it. A will, anything that's in probate, is public record. So yes, it's open to the public. People can see it. If it's in a trust, nobody can. As far as asset control, your will it's limited. And then the trust has greater flexibility about what the assets can be, what happens with the assets. And then a will only is best for simpler estates. And then adding that trust is good for a complex or larger estate. The reason I'm doing this presentation for many of you is that my husband passed away 6 months ago, and I've learned a lot over the last 6 months, and I really just want to pass on some things to all of you. We were lucky we had wills. They were from 1997. They were still valid. But over the last couple weeks, in just reaching out and talking to families, many of our families don't even have a will. And this is really the first step to protection for your kids with a disability. It's a legal document. It tells how your assets are going to be distributed after your death. What happens if you don't have a will? If you don't have a will in Texas, basically the state has some laws around it and how property is divided among your surviving relatives. It's called intestate succession. It can lead to outcomes that may not be aligned with your wishes for your loved one with a disability. It can also be more complex and costly than if you had a will. Without a will, your spouse is usually appointed executor of the estate. If you don't have a spouse, your adult children are next in line to be appointed executor. I don't think that I'd want my adult son to be appointed executor for my estate, because he just wouldn't know what to do, and people could take advantage of him. So having your adult child with a disability listed in line to be appointed executor is not really a good idea. So you really need to have that will. It also causes a lengthy probate process. So what's probate? It's just a court-supervised process of distributing the estate. It's overseen by a judge. When my husband passed away, we had to have the will validated by the judge, and I was named executor. It tells how all the assets are supposed to be distributed. Probate also involves paying off any debts or taxes, and there's a lot of rules around that. And it is required if there is no will. Probate can take a few months if the will's clear, there's not a lot of complexity to it, and there aren't any disputes. If you are a family member and you've ever dealt with your parents' estate, you know it takes years, usually because you don't have all the assets listed out. So it's really good ideas, if you're going to go through the process of creating a will, you might want to just create a list of all your bank accounts and all that stuff and put it in attach it to the will or something so that it's all listed out there, and then update it as needed. I've given you a link there to probate, and if you want to learn more about probate and the laws around that. So there are some accounts that can be passed right to the beneficiaries. Beneficiaries are going to inherit if the beneficiaries are listed. Life insurance, proceeds, real estate and bank accounts. You really have to make sure your bank accounts are listed correctly, so that you can actually keep using the money in the bank once your spouse has passed away, or your son or daughter might be taking over this. If they're a beneficiary on those bank accounts, then they'll be able to have access pretty quickly. Living trust, the property that's held there, IRA or 401k or retirement plans often have beneficiaries named. Funds that are payable on death bank account. There's all these transfer on death account type deeds or transfer on death deeds for other things like real estate or vehicles. Again, Texas has its own laws about property and who gets, doled out to when there's no will. But the big thing is that beneficiary designation. I will tell you that my husband did not have me listed on a couple of things. His parents had invested in life insurance on him when he was young. We had kept up the life insurance payments. Unfortunately, his dad was still listed as the beneficiary on that. So that's got to go through probate now. So learn from us. Check those beneficiaries often on those accounts. Yeah, so there's a couple of other things that he did that I wasn't listed on his stock accounts, so that's got to go through probate now too. So anyway, just make sure the beneficiaries are listed. When my husband was alive, of course, I was listed as the primary beneficiary. Now that he's passed away, I have to go back and change a lot of the beneficiaries on accounts to 50% to the trustee of my son's name, third-party special supplemental needs trust dated, I just made up a date for you guys, 8/31/25, and 50% to my daughter and her name. So make sure your beneficiaries on your accounts stay up to date. Especially if you end up establishing a trust and you want something to go straight to that trust and avoid probate. It's just a simple way to make sure that things are correctly listed. So, how much do wills cost? Well, if you are low income, I will tell you Lone Star Legal Aid and Houston Volunteer Lawyers Association here in Houston will do estate, wills and powers of attorney for you and that sort of thing. Also, TSU and South Texas Colleges of Law, they offer legal clinics frequently. And so that's an opportunity if you're low income to get some of this stuff done for free. There are also some online do-it-yourself programs that are very low cost. There's no attorney support. I'm talking about like Legal Shield and Rocket Legal. If you do it incorrectly, it might just make things more complicated. So just be careful if you're doing that. If you've got estate or family law attorneys, a simple will might cost you $1,500. A complex will might cost you $5,000. A complete estate plan, maybe up to $10,000. It just depends. It depends on the size of your estate, the type of assets, the attorney, and then beneficiaries. Are having, loved ones with disabilities makes our will or estate plan a little bit more complex. So what is a complete estate plan? Usually it's a last will and testament for both spouses. It names the beneficiary, appoints executor, assigns guardianship for minors. It'll also usually list in there that the beneficiaries will be the supplemental needs trust for your son or daughter. And there'll probably be some special language around that. Then there's a living trust, which manages assets during your life and after death, which you can avoid probate. There's durable powers of attorney, which authorize someone to act on your behalf financially. And then, of course, then a medical power of attorney, which appoints someone to make healthcare decisions for you. And then the HIPAA authorization. Someone can receive access, who gets access to your medical records, and then advance directive, which outline that end of life treatment. Just so you know, Family to Family is working with NetLaw, and I'll explain this all at the end a little bit, where you can get this estate planning document all done for $1,250. I will explain more about this at the end so you understand. They're just giving us a great opportunity. So then with financial options, I mean, the only reason you're going to have any of this an estate plan is because you want to make sure that there are financial assets to take care of your son or daughter after you pass away. We're going to talk about ABLE accounts. There's actually master pooled trusts, which ARC of Texas has. I learned last week about burial trusts where you can actually set aside money for funeral expenses because the master pooled trust will not pay for funeral expenses after the person has died. And then there's supplemental needs trust, also known as a special needs trust. The biggest thing you can do is sit down and create a budget. And when I'm talking about a budget, is how much do you think your son or daughter is going to need to live when you are gone? What sort of things do you take care of right now? My son and I, we go out to lunch every Saturday afternoon after he gets off work. Well, you know what? If I pass away, he's still going to want to do that. So we've got to start budgeting for that. But anyway, all of these things help you avoid the Medicaid and SSI $2,000 resource limit. And that's important because you want to make sure that they keep their Medicaid and their SSI. So ABLE accounts are really an opportunity for you. They're a 529 plan. If you anybody can contribute to the ABLE account. So if you've got any family that wants to give your son or daughter a large sum of money, it's a great place to put it. Total annual contributions can only be right now up to $19,000. So just keep that in mind. It's not exorbitant, but it's a lot of money. And just know that every year it usually gets raised. That's important to know also. The other thing, which they have not raised, even though they raised the annual contributions, is that the first 100,000 in an ABLE account is exempt from the $2,000 SSI individual resource limit. So just know that once it gets to $100,000, anything over that will not keep your son or daughter exempt from the $2,000 SSI resource limit. It is an account for the person with a disability, and their disability has to have begun before age 26, although next year that age is going to get raised to age 46, which is great for veterans, or actually also individuals who may have had an accident and they became disabled after age 26. So that's a good thing that they've raised the age limit. You're automatically eligible if you meet the age criteria and you receive SSI or SSDI. And basically, you can use the accounts for whatever the person with the disability has as a result of living a life with disabilities. And really, they call it, they say it's anything to improve the health, independence, or quality of life. So that can be for anything. The bad thing about an ABLE account is that it's a Medicaid payback trust, or not a trust, account. So when the person with a disability dies, the money in it goes back to the state to pay back the Medicaid. So we have an account for my son. We don't keep a lot of money in it, but enough so that I can transfer money in, and he has a debit card to pay for things like his Lyft or other things that he might want to need. It's a great place if, as I said, family members want to give your son or daughter some money and you don't want it to put it into their bank account, because then it will put it maybe over that $2,000 limit. I am on the Texas ABLE Advisory Committee. Every state has an ABLE account. You can go in and compare states. I know we have our account in Ohio. Some people have it in Virginia. Just know that it's an option. You don't have to put it in a Texas ABLE account. I would go into the ABLE National Resource Center and compare states, and they all have different fees and ways you can use the account and how you can invest and how many withdrawals and all this stuff, just so you know that. For us, for ABLE accounts also, the money is in their name in an ABLE account, and then they often have a debit card associated with them. So you have to be able to manage the money and be able to take the money from the ABLE account to put it onto the debit card so that they can actually use the money in the account. It doesn't easily transfer to that debit card, which sort of makes it a pain in the neck. But anyway, it's just an option. If you've got kids and you're putting money in a 529 college savings account, you can actually transfer the money into an ABLE account if you decide they're not going to college. It's just a great way to, if you want to save for college. Kids with disabilities are going to college now. Still costs, the same amount of money as everybody else. You don't get to go for free. So college savings, great place to save money and then transfer it into an ABLE account later if they're not going to go to college. Just know that's an option. Again, Medicaid payback. So here's some other slides that I've taken from the Arc of Texas just to explain what a trust is. Every trust has a beneficiary. That's the person, usually the person with a disability that it's set up for, and then a trustee who's going to make decisions about how the money is spent. We're going to be talking about third-party trusts, which are a lot different than first-party trusts, although I'll show you the difference in a couple of slides. Third parties trust is established with a third party's money. meaning like life insurance or a will or a Roth IRA or 401k. The nice thing about supplemental needs trusts is that they are not Medicaid payback trusts, and you can leave that money to other people, which is why it's important to have a document. The trust document gives the rules about what happens to the money or the property, how it can be spent or saved, where it can be used for, who can use the money. Again, and it also indicates who will, when your adult or child with a disability dies, who will get the rest of the money. That's the nice thing about having an actual document. A supplemental special needs trust helps people with disabilities keep their assets low. Well, actually, they can have high dollar assets in a special needs trust while keeping their means tested benefits. So for anything that is related to Medicaid, you know that you've got to have less than $2,000 in the bank. So HCS, Class, Star Plus, Deaf, Blind, Multiple Disabilities, Star Kids or MDCP, Texas Home Living, just have an SSI, which automatically brings Medicaid. Those are all Medicaid waivers, so you need to make sure that you have less than SSI. QMB, SLMB, and QI are actually Medicare savings plan. So if you have a child that's worked and gets SSDI, or possibly they're already getting disabled adult child benefits, and but they have Medicaid associated with them. QMB, SLMB, QI, they all have opportunities for Medicaid to help with the Medicaid, the Medicare payment, but it depends on where your income is. But they're all Medicaid related. So it's important to make sure that even if you have Medicare and Medicaid and you've got QMB, SLMB, or QI, you've got to still stay below that $2,000 limit. So that trust helps you have money above the $2,000 limit. They're great for financial planning. The biggest thing I see families do is they're funded usually with your will at the time your will is determined, and usually the special needs trust is listed as the beneficiary on life insurance. That's usually how most families pay for a special needs trust. Once they die, the life insurance on there themselves ends up paying for being put into the special needs trust. The ARC of Texas also does first party trusts. So when they talk about windfill money, that's what they're talking about, and I'll share that with you in a little bit. Usually lawsuit settlements are going to be first party trusts, etc. If grandma leaves money to your son or daughter outright and not to a special needs trust, then that might have to go into a first party trust as well. Again, traditional special needs trusts, a person establishes a trust through an attorney, an individual or a bank serves as a trustee, and there's a trust document associated, created for that specific need. In the pooled trust that the ARC of Texas have, a person establishes a trust, and then the ARC of Texas, which is a nonprofit organization, serves as a manager, and the assets are pooled for investment purposes. I think they use JP Morgan, reputable company, to manage their investments. The nice thing about the pooled trust, as well as a traditional special needs trust, again, there's no Medicaid payback for it, and you can leave money to others when the person with a disability dies. The master pooled trust, it's pooled because each person within that trust has a sub account, and you only get money out of your sub account, but because it's in a larger pool, it's open to better investment opportunities. So that's the nice thing about it. So here's just a little bit of difference. They have two types of trust. They've got the third-party trust or the first-party self-settled trust. Funded, of course, the third party is funded by on behalf of the individual with a disability, whereas like personal injury settlements or those, one-off inheritances, grandma leaves, and savings accounts. I know I talked with a family a while back, and their son had an investment account. They had set up an investment account, and it was like, oh, you know what? Maybe it's best to put it in the self-settled trust, and then your son or daughter will be eligible for Medicaid. So anyway, this is just sort of explaining the two types of trusts that the Master Pooled Trust gives you at the Arc of Texas. They send you, they call it a joinder agreement, but it's just like a trust document, and you have to make all those decisions about who's going to be the trustee and who's going to be the alternate trustees, and where the money's going to go when person with a disability dies. So just to give you an idea of what that costs, the Master Pooled Trust, it's a low-cost alternative to a traditional trust. There's an enrollment fee of $600, and then you don't have any fees until you actually fund the account. So friend of mine, grandma just passed away, and she had left money to the Special Needs Trust, not to the grandson outright. So now they're having to go through and put the money into this account, and now the account is funded, so now they're going to have to pay annual fees, and it's based on how much money you have in there. So anyway, if you go to the arcoftexas.org and /trust, you can find lots of information about their Master Pooled Trust. They've got videos on there. They've got a Master Pooled Trust kit, so you can learn all about it. There are some specific guidelines that they have, so you really need to know what those are. They'll only do 24 disbursements each year, not including anything that you've set up as auto pay. They won't pay for rent, mortgage, or other payments for shelter, because that's all supposed to be coming out of SSI or whatever. They're not going to pay property taxes. They're not going to pay utilities. So if you end up leaving your home to your son or daughter, how's this stuff going to get covered if you can't do it through the Master Pooled Trust? There are a lot of things they do cover, which is great. But they'll never purchase guns or other weapons, luxury vehicles, stocks, investments, or cryptocurrency, or exotic animals. But so you really need to know how they'll disperse the money. It's really important to look at their toolkit if you want to go that route. The nice thing about Special Needs Trust is that they can work in conjunction with ABLE accounts. Because remember, the ABLE account is there to help improve the health, independence, or quality of life. So remember back on the previous page, there's all this stuff that the Arc of Texas will not pay for. Well, maybe you could use that through the ABLE account. So just as an example, housing. Right now, the SSI payment is $967. If you can find an apartment and pay utilities for $967, tell me about it, because I don't know where that is. But a nice apartment in an apartment complex with utilities probably costs you about $1,500 a month. Well, if the Special Needs Trust, and definitely not the Master Pooled Trust, won't pay for it, then maybe it's a good idea to have the ABLE account pay for it, so they can do an auto transfer from the Special Needs Trust, maybe $1,500 to the ABLE account, and then pay your rent and utilities from the ABLE account. The Able National Resource Center has a great sort of document on how you can use the Able accounts and special needs trust together. They did a webinar on it. If you want to learn more about it, I suggest you go check that out when you have an opportunity. So if you don't have a trust, whether it's the master pooled or the special needs trust, you know, any direct inheritance is probably going to disqualify your child from their benefits, whether that's the waiver programs, Medicaid, insurance, SSI, it'll knock them out of that too. And if you're no longer around, it's going to create a lot of stress, which your family is already going to be under, because all of a sudden, you know, there's a child with a disability that's going to be there. And that's going to add legal costs to you, because attorneys don't do this for free. I know my attorney that I've been using just sent an email out today that said their rates are going to be going up $100 an hour. So this is the second time it's gone up in 2 years. So just know that legal costs are expensive. Misuse of funds can happen too and cause, you know, financial hardship. And again, you know, those unprotected assets may be subject to state recovery. Medicaid may want them back. So anyway, so what do special needs trust documents cost? Depending on if you're getting them done with your estate plan or not, they could cost, you know, $2,000 to $3,000. Just want you to understand that. Again, with net law and EMG Financial will be glad to help you do this for $1,250. Again, it includes the trust, the execution instructions, how to administer it and fund it, and then a trust summary. We are working with NetLaw. I met Hargrove and EMG, and they were able to offer us this opportunity. It is an online process. It's accessible in all 50 states. It's very simple for families to use. There are attorneys available to answer questions. When you're online, they can answer your questions. And the other thing is that because it's online, you can update it at any time. If you move, it'll pick up your new address and make sure that you've got all the right things in your will or your estate plan, as well as your special needs trust. So that's nice. You know, it's just a great opportunity for you to have all this. Again, it's simple to use, puts you in control, it's cost effective. You know, I don't have to worry about those extra billed hours. Again, we'll work as a group. You'll work with me along with my cohort, Brandon from EMG. We'll help you initially get logged in, walk you through some of it. We'll give you 30 days, come back, and then we'll meet with you again, because we don't want you to finalize it until we've had a chance to go through and review everything. You'll have access to attorneys that you can ask questions from on the whole process. I mean, you're more than welcome to do that. Just so you know, an all-in-one package with all this stuff usually runs about $4,500. That's what it cost me when I had all of this done. I am also going to help you with a budget and work out a budget. And the nice thing is Family to Family Network can offer you this all-in-one package for just $2,000. If you go to f2fn.org special needs trust, I just want you to have that availability to get that done. I don't want to see any family without a will. If you go on that website, you can either purchase just the special needs, you can do the whole, you know, estate plan here if that's all you need or want. If anything, if you have to choose between one or the other, please do the will package. Get that will done, because I'd rather have your son or daughter protected at least a little bit through that. Or you can do both here. And once you do that, then Brandon and I will get with you. Feel free to reach out to me if you want to text me or call. You can also ask questions on our Contact Us page if you want. And anyway, I want to thank you all for coming this evening. It's really been nice to share this information with you. I really want to make sure that families and their individuals with disabilities are protected after they pass on. As again, I said, I've learned so much over the last 6 months about this that I didn't know before. And I want you guys to be prepared. So thanks so much for coming, and we will talk soon. Thanks. Oh, fuck, did it not?